Right. So you just heard Kuja Sante of the CDD and Linda Ofori-Kwafo of the GII. They led the coalition against corruption press statements on the issue against the presidency and the manner in which it had treated Daniel Domelevo. So yesterday, should I say, almost midnight, the presidency issued a 21-page statement explaining everything that has happened so far and justifying everything that it has done. And actually calling out the CSOs for taking the president and the presidency on without what they feel is due cause or good reason. If you remember, the Audit Service Board had actually paid for a very long advertisement in the Daily Graphic, also explaining the circumstances leading to Domelevo's exit. We'll be discussing that right away. And joining me, Professor Ransford Jampo of the University of Ghana, Kofi Bento, lawyer and of Imani, Africa, Manasseh Azori-Awene, Journalist of the Year, West Africa, and Anti-Corruption Crusader. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning, Samson.
Great. So let me begin with Manasseh. You have been writing quite a lot about this matter of the Auditor General's, exit, and stating what you say are the facts that are being pushed aside by the presidency, and being very categorical that the presidency has been wrong all along. Have you read the 21-page statement from the presidency?
Yes, Samson. I got it yesterday and I read it.
What does it change about your thinking of the Auditor General and the issues that have come up?
Well, if it has changed anything, it has reaffirmed my belief that Daniel Domelevo was targeted by a president and a presidency that is not committed to the fight against corruption. And it reaffirms some of the discussions I have had with ministers of state when this Domelevo thing first came out. One, they told me, and we had an argument on it, I am friends with some of them, and they believed that Domelevo was unnecessarily targeting the regime, that's the Akufo-Addo government. And one of them asked me specifically that why is it that the list of the corruption cases you did, Domelevo is not investigating those ones. And I reminded this minister, who is a cabinet minister, that it wasn't true that Domelevo was targeting only or looking at cases of this regime. At the beginning of the Akufo-Addo presidency, I think they praised the Auditor General for some performance audits that payments were supposed to be made, and did the audit, and they saved over 5 billion cedis. Those audits were not done in the Akufo-Addo government. It was the Mahama era. The Auditor General even had to go to court after the Supreme Court Zoom Lion over some contract, fumigation contract that was paid from National Health Insurance. This audit was between 2009 to 2017, and this was again not in the Akufo-Addo era. So the notion that Domelevo was brought in to target this particular regime has been emphasized in this particular response. And if you read the beginning, they looked at the circumstances under which he was appointed, and they conclude to the effect that, well, Mahama wanted to appoint somebody, but because he lost, he brought in Domelevo. So are they saying that the person Mahama wanted to appoint first, as Alex Kwame Avek, was an NPP person, because he lost, he brought Domelevo? That is the question. And if you also go deep down the statement...
No, before you go to another subject on the statement,
okay,
you are not you are not disturbed by what they bring to our attention. Of course, we have known this all along, that prior to the 30th December 2016 appointment of Domelevo, President Mahama had submitted the name of Dr. Felix Kwame Ave to the Council of State. The Council of State clearly had worked on him, and then, having lost elections, he decides to initiate a process to replace Dr. Kwame Ave. You don't think that that is curious and deserving of some attention at least?
If you're talking of curiosity, then I think the government side needs to think deeply. They are saying that Mahama is appointing somebody, in that case Domelevo, who is very loyal to the NDC. So the question is, if Mahama wanted someone very loyal to the NDC, then when he had the hope of winning and then staying on to be the president, then it is only normal or natural that he would have preferred that person whose loyalty he could vouch for to be the Auditor General under Mahama's regime, so that he won't disturb him. If you go to the page of Gabi Asarot-Redakon, for instance, he had a post, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said Alex Kwame Ave actually declined the position when he was appointed. Alex Kwame Ave declined. Last night, when this statement came, I scrolled down Gabi Asarot-Redakon's page, and that post is still on his Facebook page. So if what Gabi is saying is to be taken, then the fact that somebody declines the offer doesn't mean Mahama shouldn't make another offer of appointment. And like I said, if they are insisting that Mahama lost, knowing that he lost, he has to bring someone loyal to the NDC.
They have canvassed sufficient information to make you believe that Domelevo was never targeted by the president. Right after his appointment, he was led to the president by his friend, Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh. They had a cordial, meeting, and the president pledged his support for his work. Subsequently, Domelevo himself, publicly confessed to the president, giving him all the support unprecedented for his work. And they say he was not targeted. The president actually didn't have an eye on the Kroll associate disallowance and surcharge of the 5.5 million or $1 million contract, so to speak.
Beyond those facts don't change anything. They are only giving those facts to emphasize their point. And if you read clearly, you realize that the point is that they had something against the man beyond the date of birth or even the leave, because they are given a number of reasons. Now, let's even look at before this Kroll Associates thing came up. Domelevo had petitioned the president to investigate the interference of the board chair. The board chair is not supposed to take part in the auditing process, and Domelevo had written to the president complaining that the board chair at the point had to intervene. He sent auditors to go and audit some state institutions, such as the National Health Insurance Authority. The board chair petitioned the president. The question is, did the president conduct the investigation he promised to do it? So these things started long before the Kroll. And there is a serious, those who are governance experts can explain this better. When Albert Kandapa, who is the National Security Minister, appeared before the vetting committee, he made a statement which Occupy Ghana actually wrote a rejoinder. And he said he didn't believe that Domelevo should have claimed so much independence that he wouldn't take authority or some kind of direction from the board chair of the audit service. The board chair of the audit service was working under Yao Osafo-Maafo. Yao Osafo-Maafo was being investigated or audited by the Auditor General. So if you look at this scenario alone, it is problematic. So there were issues, and eventually it was the same board chair who recommended the leave, who recommended this kind of supposed to go on retirement and everything. So that issue is even very serious.
You don't find the information they provide to rebut the claim that he had been targeted because of the disallowance and surcharge that he issued against Osafo-Maafo tenable. You don't find that information, which is a lot of information, telling you, among others, and quoting even the court, taking on Domelevo for misconducting himself, particularly at the time when he decided not to continue to cooperate with Osafo-Maafo's office, not informing him that he was disinterested in coming to, as it were, inspect the documents that for national security purposes, they didn't want to hand him copies. You don't find all of that plausible, nothing at all?
I think if you have not followed this case very clearly or thoroughly from the beginning, you have not read the judgment, and you have not read the arguments advanced by both sides, you may be swayed by what the presidency is saying. But there are a lot of problems with that. And I think in Domelevo's case, one of the institutions that has let Ghana down, not just Domelevo, is the court, and even the Supreme Court. And I've written about it. Now, they are talking about national security information or whatever. Something is a fact that in all the auditing process, when the auditing started, when auditing completed, when the management letter was issued, this issue about national security confidentiality never came up from Maafo's camp. That is a fact. And I challenge anybody to produce any evidence that they ever mentioned the issue of national security or confidentiality. Two, they claim that, and in the president's letter, they have stated that this information they were trying to keep from the Auditor General had been given to Iyoko. It had been submitted to the report, had been submitted to Kokubor. It had been given to the Chief Minister and others. Question is, if information is so confidential that it cannot be given to the Auditor General for the purpose of audit, then how is it possible that all these other institutions would get that information? Two, those
institutions are security institutions.
They are not. Osafo-Maafo's office is not a security institution. Kokubor is not a security institution. And all of these have this report, and the Auditor General wants this report for his work.
Right.
And mind you, security institutions are audited by the Auditor General. But something I just want to also say that in the President's report, they said that the reason they didn't give the report to or the information to the Auditor General was because the audit was still ongoing. But it is also a fact that at the point
was that the investigation was ongoing, not the audit?
Sorry, the investigation was still ongoing, but they had paid all the contract sums. And if you read the contract, it says that people would work and bill the government of Ghana to pay. And they were going to be billed based on hourly rate. I think the highest was around $750 per hour. So if you want to look at the contract and how it was executed, the people were supposed to work. After 2 weeks, they will send a bill, and the bill will indicate what they did within those, the number of hours they covered and what they did.
All right.
And the government will go on to pay. So if you have finished paying the entire contract sum, and a year later somebody now comes and wants to audit, And then you are saying the reason you cannot give is that the audit was, sorry, the
investigation was ongoing.
Investigation was still ongoing.
All right.
That is problematic.
Okay, so Manasseh, you hold on for me. We will come to the question of Daniel Domelevo's date of birth and ask again if in that regard, the information that has been supplied, including the fresh information, an addition suggesting that on 2 occasions, not only once, Daniel Domelevo himself had stated that this was when he was born. And it was 1960, not 61. 61 was a later attempt, a later inclusion in the beneficial form for SNIT. And again, there were processes that the law allows for him to correctly change the date if he was minded. And for someone who was pursuing people in public service who had issues with their dates of birth, he should have been minded to do so. He didn't do so. They say you civil society organizations and individuals have been talking, but you have refused to pay attention. We'll find out if that too, your mind changes after the information you have gotten from them. Let's go to Professor Ransford Jampo. Thank you very much, Prof. Hello, Prof. Hello, Professor Jampo. Hello, Professor Jampo. Okay. Kofi Bentil, are you with us? Hello, Kofi Bentil.
Hello, Samson.
Good. What will be your comments on the back of the 21-page statement from the presidency? Sufficient information to get you to tell yourself, we need to step back? Hello, Kofi Bentil. Is Professor Jampo back on the line?
Yeah, Samson, good morning.
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, Samson, let me be snappy here. I am in the middle of the meeting and your producer called me. So I think I am confident in the panelists that you have in doing justice to this matter. So if you would just allow me to just be brief and then go back to what I was doing. I wasn't told earlier. So
please go on.
Yeah. So basically, I think I've read the letter from the Office of the President in response to the personal health by the civil society organizations against how Domelevo was handled. The letter seeks basically to clarify and offer another side and also governmental response to the DSO's criticisms on the Domelevo matter. But generally, reading and analyzing the issue, I think that whatever we do, whatever we say, we must be mindful of a certain fundamental problem that has to do with the timing of his appointment, the timing of Domelevo's appointment, and the perception that it was an agenda to do the Akufo-Addo regime in, coupled with Domelevo's own forceful public utterances and the kinds of things that he says. You know, he is the first Auditor General in the history of Ghana's First Republic who is always out there, you know, forcefully articulating what he believes in and all that. And so some of these things tended to fuel the perception that, look, the man was there and was just brought in to do the Akufo-Addo government thing. And so it fuels the governmental high-handedness and the choleric implementation of laws against him. And I think that going forward as a nation, we must look again and rethink about the decisions and appointments that can be made by regimes and governments during transition periods, when elections have been held, and when you know you are going. Are you able to make certain decisions? Are you able to make certain appointments, you know, that other regimes must come and, you know, respect and order? That aside, we must also not behave as if we must, the idea of winner takes all must be perpetuated to the point that if you don't appoint somebody, you should not be able to work with that person. It doesn't help our cause as we try to
deepen good governance and as we speak against the practice of winner takes all politics. I think also one serious issue or one solution that could have brought finality, to this matter was when the matter was sent to the court. And I think that the court failed to intervene in such a time-sensitive matter when matters germane to how Domelevo was handled were sent to them. We would have known who is telling the truth if the matter had been dealt with by the court. But for whatever reason, they delayed until the man is now on retirement.
There has been an explanation from the court that the court did not delay anything. Rather, those who were litigating had delayed and had even been asked by the court to do certain things, and they defaulted in doing them. So why are we still accusing the court?
Well, unfortunately, this explanation then is not known in the public. I mean, it's not known to the public. The court over the years they have been deficient in communicating some of the things that they do. And governance is also about perception. The idea of legitimacy is not about doing right, always doing right. It's also about people knowing and feeling you are doing the right thing. And if people would know and feel you are doing the right thing, sometimes you have to also be thoughtful in the kind of communication you put out there so that there is clarity. But for now, I think what has happened has tended to the perception that the government wasn't willing to work with whoever it didn't appoint. Again, by what has happened, we have psychologically rendered whoever replaces Domelevo as toothless and illegitimate as the perception would be that such a person must be a party favorite. Even if the person is not the party favorite, such a person may want to be politically correct in his dealing and in the discharge of his role. And I think this will not help. So basically, reading the epistle, the long write-up of Asante Bigi and looking at what has happened, I think this is what I want to say. We must begin to decide whether government will still have the mandate to make certain appointments, particularly at the time that it is leaving office. Again, we must also not allow the idea to fester that if you don't appoint somebody, you must not be able to work with that person. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Ransford Jankpo of the University of Ghana. Kofi Bento, thank you for joining me. I was asking you, having read the 21-page response from the presidency, is there anything that suggests to you that those of us who have gone to the defense of Domelevo should take a step back?
Good morning, Samson. Quite the contrary. I think reading the epistles that have been sent and published all over the place, I am quite confident that it is clear to the persons who did this against Daniel Domelevo that they have not convinced anybody. Okay, as Empire, if you have a good case, you don't need a lot of words to explain yourself. It is clear that the public sees this as running out Domelevo, who generally is considered to be the best Auditor General we've had in this country. And the explanations have not helped them. It is just a sad attempt to try and switch the narrative. Let me say that in the case of Special Prosecutor Amidu, it may have worked. But in this particular case, it has the opposite effect. And if you read the long letter, it really has little substance. The first 2 pages want to suggest that Daniel Domelevo is one unqualified, unfit, a late implant to come and harass the present government. And all the evidence is against that fact. Manasseh just talked about the fact that the first person refused it. All right. So you can go on and on and on and on. And every step of the way, there are glaring actions, and sometimes they are patently illegal. And all of these point to a clear, simple fact that there is a concerted attempt to drive this man out. Let me just give you one example. When the senior minister says that the matters being investigated are national security, please permit me for just 30 seconds to read Article 187 of the Constitution of Ghana. Says, and 187, I'm reading 3. For the purpose of clause 2 of this article, the Auditor General or any person authorized or appointed for the purpose by the Auditor General shall have access to all books, records, returns, and other documents relating to or relevant to those accounts. And if you read from 1 to like 5, you understand that nothing is national security when it comes to the Auditor General. And you can go on and on and on. But the bottom line is this. The epistles of yesterday night just prove that even after driving the man out of office, they are having a difficult time convincing the general populace that this was the right thing to do. And I think
is it not the case that civil society, individuals, organizations like yourself, you are simply refusing to listen to the other side of the story? That having heard all what had gone on, you took the government on, you took the president on, and they have written to tell you that this is a president who has a track record of being an anti-corruption person and someone who has fidelity to the law. He will not do anything that is unlawful. And they say, you have been peddling untruth, deliberate misconstruction of the facts, and completely disregarding the rule of law. For example, you add this to Amidu's exit, and we have heard Professor Jima Buedi, a very big person as far as these matters are concerned, public governance issues are concerned, say that as for the President Akufo-Addo, and I'm quoting him, as for the President Akufo-Addo's credibility in terms of anti-corruption, I am afraid to say it is in tatters. It has been in tatters for a while, but this puts a nail in the coffin. What is it that he says puts a nail in the coffin? The treatment of Daniel Domelevo. So this is Professor Jima Buedi, who is founder and former executive director of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development. You have been giving information, and you still don't want to take any of the information from the other side of the story?
Well, so Samson, I think that should be examined a bit further. When you are given information, it is for you to analyze the information and check it against what you are saying. So it goes one way or the other. Maybe the information comes to confirm that what you are saying is right or what you are saying is wrong. That is the first thing. So they should not expect that every information they give will lead to their exoneration. That is one. Secondly, and very importantly, anybody who thinks that civil society groups, and this is not just Imani or CDD or ISODEC or any single one, but this is most of the civil society groups sitting together, examining all the information. I assure you that I have been in this area for over a decade. Civil society groups are staffed and led by some of the most, rigorous persons, and you cannot hoodwink them or throw wool over their eyes. Now, when all of them sit down, all of them analyze all the information and come to one conclusion, don't think that civil society is a humongous entity where everybody thinks or votes the same way or like the same. There are very, very serious persons from each party and wherever, persuasion within civil society. After all that consideration, we come to that irresistible conclusion that this is what is going on. And yes, we agree with Professor Jima Buedi that indeed, this president has undone a lot of the goodwill that he built over his many years of, politics. And again, all the evidence speaks to it. You say he's a law-abiding person, he's fought for the law. I just told you how he breached the Constitution. And you can go on and on. Each action that was taken breaches some law one way or the other.
Okay. I'm compelled to read a portion of what they speak about and ask all of us a question, the public, to question your motives and why, when there is a certain obvious situation where you ought to be telling Domelevo also that he has done some wrong, you simply refuse to do the same thing you are doing to the presidency and government to Domelevo. So they say that you didn't condemn Domelevo when the court found that he had misconducted himself in proceeding with the disallowance and surcharge without communication of his cessation of cooperation with Mr. Osafo Mafo. They had quoted a portion of the judgment of the court where the court said, quote, in this case, however, the Auditor General had clearly engaged the office of the senior minister directly to a point. There is, however, no clear reason on the record to show why he did not complete the engagement and decided to withdraw his cooperation without consummating the engagement already commenced. It must be put on record that for any and every person in public office who exercises discretionary power of any sort, that discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid, and the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious, or biased, either by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike, and shall be in accordance with due process of law. In this case, the court holds the view that Mr. Domelevo, in order to observe due process and to prevent any procedural lapses, ought to have at least communicated his refusal to inspect the document for stated reasons before going ahead to issue the notices that have given rise to the appeals before this court. Without going into further detail, since by their eventual agreement to inspect the document, the respondent's office have tacitly acknowledged the error of their ways, I hold that Mr. Domelevo failed to abide by the well-known rules of natural justice of giving the appellants the opportunity to be heard. They say you didn't condemn this, you didn't see anything wrong with it. You still have not been heard.
Well, Samson, honestly, the reading of all those things is fine, but I don't think you have the time, and you should also allow us to speak. On the specific thing that you read, the whole point is this. The court is saying Mr. Domelevo should have done a few other things differently. You must appreciate that Mr. Domelevo was actively resisted in the performance of his duties, and that is why it left, that kind of situation. That is one. Are you asking us to condemn him for doing what? People did worse things, and we are not saying that justifies this. But the point is this. In the case of Mr. Domelevo, and by the way, it is not him. It is the Office of the Auditor General. We have a situation where he is subject to the law and subject to challenge, which in this case is exactly what happened. And when that happens and the court reprimands him, that is it. We will prefer people not to be indolent. We will prefer people who occupy that office to be proactive. And if they make a mistake, let the persons go to court and the court will rule in their favor. Now, what we find, look, civil society fought. We fought. We were on the street. We went to court. People wrote things to get the Auditor General sufficiently empowered to fight corruption. And this is the first Auditor General who is doing so. Is anybody suggesting that he's going to be perfect when he's the first person who is implementing a law which has not been implemented for over half a century? And the fact is that the law says clearly, if you feel hard done by, go to court, and the court will determine whether the person did the right thing or not. And that is what the court did. So again, back to my point. When all these things are said and done and all the facts are on the ground, civil society comes to the conclusion that what the Auditor General did is right. That is the proper thing he must do. And if the court decides that, yes, some aspects of it were not properly done, well and good, all fine. But then you look at the full picture. When you want to understand something, you look at the full picture. Don't look at the trees, look at the forest. You have a situation where this Auditor General, look at the Kroll case that we are talking about. People claiming it is national security. And I said the law, the Constitution says nothing of that sort should happen. The law was broken in that sense. There were court challenges and the courts ruled, but the court did not rule that the Auditor General was more or less out of his powers. They said he did a few things wrongly, he should do a few things differently. I would take that more than I would take all the other Auditor Generals who did not do anything. We also appreciate that over his tenure, there were many internal fights with the board. And note that the board chairman was working under a person he was auditing. Okay. You also appreciate that there were proxy legal challenges against him over his tenure. Then there was the forced leave. Then there was a challenge of his nationality.
So let's get into one more. Let's get into one more specific. Let's get into one more specific issue. Let's get into one more specific issue. And I'm being specific to you because we need to deal with the specifics. Now, you mentioned the Kroll Associates issue. The presidency's letter tells you that, quote, Daniel Domelevo used his office to engage in unacceptable and unconscionable conduct. He actually, they say, abused his office. They say that in the Kroll matter, he sought to protect the John Mahama administration by seeking to prevent unearthing of corruption. You are for the unearthing of corruption. They say in the manner that he dealt with the Kroll Associate matter, he was rather seeking to prevent the unearthing of corruption. What do you say to that?
I say that is preposterous. In the first place, what did the Kroll Associates, charging over $500 an hour, what did they give us? What did we get from Kroll Associates? Number two, how does anybody come to the conclusion that by refusing something which the person is determining to be unlawful, he is against what they are trying to do? So I don't see any substance in that particular assertion. It is very self-serving. Somebody bypasses the statutory institution, decides to go and bring some other institution, decides what to pay them, including paying them for work not done. And when the person who has the statutory office complains, you tell him that, well, he's against that. I think it's self-serving. We should put it aside. We have been fighting anti-corruption all these years. Look, this is the best we have had when it comes to the potential to make people who are corrupt pay back. Even passing the law against causing financial loss did not get us far. This Auditor General has shown or showed that he was prepared to take this thing to the next level, working with everybody in the interest of the nation. This action to stop him may seem to have succeeded, but honestly, I think that this government is going to pay a price for it, and everybody can see through it. I listed all the things that have happened. Together, they lead to an irresistible conclusion that somebody does not want this man in office. And again, if you go to the specifics of his age, the law is not on the side of the
let's go to.
I have seen a Senate form giving his age, and I have not seen anything which is of legal import cancelling that age.
Kofi, hold on. We'll go to his age as the final question. But my last question on this aspect, before I get you and Manasseh to both tell us of what you are being told now about the questions of his age, including the fresh information, what you make of it. The issue is, you say Kroll Associates were getting 5.5 million Ghana cedis for no work done. They say that they were being paid for the value of the assets that they were recovering for the state. What do you say to that? So they were not paid for work not done.
What I say to that is, why would you pay over $1 million to somebody when the state already pays hundreds of people to do the same job, especially when you have not concluded that they are incapable of doing the work and they have not expressed to you that they are unwilling to do the work? Why would you do that? I think it looks like causing financial loss. It is a duplication that is unwarranted. And then the point I'm making is, you are telling me that somebody is likely to steal $1 million. So you are hiring somebody to go after the $1 million. Even though you have not established that it's been stolen or it's been lost or whatever, you are paying the person a certain percentage of the value of the money that they are supposed to go and chase. It doesn't make sense to me. Ultimately, we are here, and I am asking, what did we get from Kroll Associates? If even the decisions were right at the time, they will be proven by the outcomes. And what is the outcome of that Kroll Associates thing?
One of the outcomes of the Kroll Associates. One of the outcomes of the. No, Kofi, hold on. Kofi, hold on. You have been asking repeatedly, what is the outcome of the Kroll Associates? One of the outcomes of the Kroll Associates is the prosecutions ongoing, particularly in Opuni and the Agongo matter. You are aware, aren't you?
We are getting prosecutions. Anybody who is before a prosecution may leave acquitted or may be found guilty. So as of now, Kroll Associates has not yielded anything of substance. And the point I'm making is that there is nothing to tell me that the sitting Auditor General could not have done the same or a better job. Okay. So that fact is still borne out. I've forgotten what I wanted to say earlier.
All right. So let's get you and Manasseh to speak about the Beth matter. And that will be my final question to all of you. But Manasseh, on the results and the reason Kroll Associates deserve the millions they were paid, you discount that. What evidence you have to show to the contrary that they didn't achieve any work for Ghana?
Well, like Kofi Bento mentioned, at the very beginning, the contract says when you work, we are going to pay you this amount per hour. And the amount is stated, the highest being $750 or $80 an hour. So if they are now saying it was the value of the recovery, then you couldn't have determined that already, even before the work started. But when you were engaging with Mr. Bench, I just want to give you a few facts. One, on the fact that the Auditor General went in to scuttle the investigation. That is not true. The Audit Service did not set in to investigate Kroll. They were investigating the Ministry of Finance, and they came across payment that was made in respect of Kroll. So they said, give us evidence. And that's what led to all of this. So it is never true that they targeted Kroll. Two, about the end of engagement, which the judge said, that cannot be very accurate. The fact of the matter is that throughout the audit, they never provided the evidence, even up to the point of the management letter that was issued. It was only when Domelevo said, I'm going to surcharge you, so give me reasons I should not surcharge and disallow this expenditure. Then Osafo gave the reason. He didn't feel the reasons were satisfactory enough, and he went on to surcharge and disallow. The court cannot say he did not give them any hearing. That is also not true.
All right.
I just want to briefly provide a little bit of information on the excuse by the court that it was those who were supposed to prosecute the case who did not push. The truth of the matter is that we're all here in 2020, just a week before the voter registration. Some people brought cases to the Supreme Court, and some of us even thought it would shift the registration date forward. The Supreme Court gave orders, file your report, and within weeks, the matters were all resolved. If the Supreme Court took this seriously, they could have resolved the Domelevo issue within a month. And then the Supreme Court should also be telling Ghanaians why it failed to rule on the matter, whether or not the information that was refused the Auditor General was confidential in nature. That's what the High Court asked the Supreme Court to do, but they failed to do it.
All right.
And rather ask the
all right. We have traversed that. Yes, we have traversed that. Now, I need you, the two of you, to tell me whether anything has changed for you reading the aspects of the 22 one-page release about the murky state of his date of birth. Let me read this. On the 1st of October 1978, Mr. Domelevo completed by handwriting a registration form for SNIT membership. On that form, he stated his date of birth as 1st June 1960. Mr. Domelevo, after completing that registration by hand, signed it as containing the true and accurate information. He also indicated on the registration form that his hometown was Agbatofe in Togo. For the sake of emphasis, we reiterate that Mr. Domelevo completed this registration form in his own hand, signed it, and thumb-printed it. It is worth noting that he joined SNIT as an employee of the Ghana Education Service at Impraeso as an 18-year-old. The Office of the President also provided with a SNIT change of beneficiary form that Mr. Domelevo had completed on the 25th of October 1993. On that form, again, completed by hand, he stated his date of birth as 1st June 1961. And this time, his hometown was stated as Ada. It is unclear whether or not this change in date of birth was an attempt by Mr. Domelevo to correct his original date of birth provided to SSNIT in October 1978. The fact of the matter is that there are laid down procedures and they show how you can change your date of birth with SSNIT, which he didn't. The last statement here. Through its own investigations, again, the Office of the President discovered that the Ghanaian passport number so and so issued on the 28th of February 1996 had 1st June 1961 as his date of birth, and now Kumasi as his hometown. Note those differences. Kumasi from Ada, now Kumasi is his hometown. And then from a previous Agba Tofe. Thus, from all the official documents in respect of Mr. Domelevo, there are 2 dates of birth, 1st June 1960 and 1st June 1961, and 3 hometowns, Agba Tofe, Ada, and Kumasi. They are asking you in civil society why this is not curious to you, and everything else you are blaming it on the government and the presidency, when they are saying that they have rather done the state a good thing by discovering this, and on the basis of that asking him to retire. And they show us that he actually has committed a criminal offense. We don't know if they want to prosecute that. Yes, Kofi?
Again, this is a matter of law. Okay? Many Ghanaians today, including me, we have 3 hometowns. I was born in Accra, but I don't want to go into explaining that. So that is all up in the air. Many Ghanaians today have mistakes in their dates of birth. Okay, that is a very well-known fact. Today, as we speak, our births and deaths registry is moribund. It does not do a good job. Anybody from anywhere pays a bit of money, they can get a birth certificate. So we know the problems over there. But here's the substantive issue. When you have such situations concerning dates of birth and other things, you and I know as lawyers that there's something called the presumption of regularity, which is to say, what is on the official paper is what is correct. I have seen a SSNIT form for Mr. Domelevo, which says he was born in 1961. The presumption of regularity works in his favor. If there is any other document, and for that matter, a beneficiary replacement form cannot be elevated to a document that can amend the date of birth on a SSNIT form. It is not anybody's job, including the president, to decide which one to take by himself and say, I have seen 3, so I have picked one. That is for a court to do. So as we speak, the president says, Mr. Daniel Domelevo is retired. I am not sure whether it is SSNIT that is saying that. And I'm not sure whether the president is authorizing SSNIT to retire him. And I'm not sure whether it is the audit service that is retiring him. And I'm not sure whether they are going to start paying his pension now or they are going to start paying his pension from next year. The point is this: all the different dates and ages, etc., there's nothing strange about it for a person of the age of Mr. Daniel Domelevo. There's lots of that. It doesn't make it right or wrong.
They say in 2010
you'd go to a court.
Right.
It is not for anyone to rise and choose one and use it against you. That's the whole point.
They point out to you that in 2010, when he was going on early retirement by himself, the forms that he filled, once again, he indicated his date of birth, and they would prefer to use all these circumstances. The SSNIT form you refer to, I have seen and I read on this show, is a statement of account form, and it's very clear that his date of birth that you prefer and you mentioned is also on that SSNIT form. What do you make of the circumstance? They are saying that for Domelevo, who has told other employees in the civil service that they are trying to change their date of birth and so on, and he will not countenance it. And because of that, some people have lost, on that account. He ought to have done the right thing and change it correctly.
Yes, I don't see him having done anything wrong except make mistakes or change dates, which I'm saying people do. And the way to resolve that in a case of a dispute like this is not for anybody, including the president, to decide on which one he prefers and to take it and use it against the person. It is for a process. Now, where there is an official document bearing a certain age, for instance, his SNIT form, which is a very strong document in this jurisdiction, you need a document that is stronger than that to amend it. So as we speak, all the different documents they say he's filled, a beneficiary replacement form, some other form, and this form, do they have the weight in law to amend what is officially with SNIT or not? That is the question. No other question is relevant. And I'm saying that has not been answered. So if the president thought that this was necessary, instead of sending him off to leave for over a year or so, over 3 months or so, they could have taken this matter up and had it resolved. But to pick one out of a lot and say, I prefer this one, and for that reason you've been retired. The question I'm asking right now is that, is this SNIT that retired him, or audit service that retired him, or the president that retired him? And which document is being used to amend the document at SNIT? These matters can come to court. And if they come to court, we'll have the determination. Assuming, without saying it will be so, that it turns out that the court agrees that he was born in 1961. What do we do? Okay. Because as we speak right now, there's been no legal determination of that matter.
Okay. It must be stated, however, that Kofi, as you repeat SNIT documents, he also has SNIT documents that give the other dates. So there are two different dates at SNIT.
A beneficiary replacement form cannot amend the SNIT original document bearing his biodata. That's the point I'm making. Forms have a hierarchy in terms of their legal import. So we must appreciate that when you have a form, let's say your passport, and you go and fill some other form to go and get something else, and there is a different piece of information there, the hierarchy in terms of the documents, in terms of their legal nature, will be used to determine which information is correct. And I'm saying,
so let me get you. You are saying that the beneficiary form is inferior.
Yes, it is inferior.
If it's inferior, then you are supporting government's position, because the form in which he stated he was born on 1st June 1960 is the original membership form and not the beneficiary form.
The point I am making, again, please listen, is that I have seen a SNIT form, which is a proper SNIT generated form.
That's a statement of account.
Pardon?
It's a statement of account.
It is a SNIT official form.
That's correct.
And SNIT used the information they have in his official data to generate that form. So my understanding from there is that SNIT's information is that it is 1961. And my question is, what other form has amended that form?
Thank you very much, Kofi. Manasseh, you on this, and then thank you, Kofi. Thank you very much. We move on. Kofi, we are done with you. Let's go to Manasseh. Manasseh, what would you say about the date of birth issue? Does it sound murky to you?
Well, there are lots of murky situations, and my surname, I write it Awuni. I have a brother who also writes Awine, and we have the same father, the same mother. The difference is that he started school in Bongo in the Upper East region, so they wrote Awine as it is pronounced in my hometown. I started school in Ketekrachi and they wrote Awuni. So I now want to know whether if I change it today, tomorrow my children may not, or myself may not have to explain that I did something, but these mistakes occur. The issue we should be looking at is there are other factors we can consider. The man you just spoke to is called Kofi Bento. If he gives a date and you trace history and you realize that no, the date he has given was not a Friday. You know, Kofis are supposed to be born on Friday. So that can also be used to discredit whatever date he gives. Then also, if you look at Yao Domelevo, the date he says is the correct date falls on a Thursday. So if you want to look at all of this, and what you read from the presidency, they said somewhere, they use the word is unclear. So if you are not clear, why do you insist that the one that feels this should be used to retire him, not the other one, which is equally valid when we want to even look at his middle name, Yao? The 1961 falls on a Thursday. The 1960 doesn't fall on a Thursday. So I'll go with what Kofi Bento said.
Manasseh, they are saying that the original documentation for his membership is 1960. It is only the beneficiary form that has 1961. And yes, in that order, they prefer the 1960, which is the original documentation for his membership registration. And in SNIT, the law provides a way to change if you want to change anything, including your date of birth. He, Domelevo, they say, has been championing civil servants who have been, as it were, deliberately, corruptly changing their ages and not doing things rightly. So he ought to have been minded to have done the change officially. Once he hasn't done it, he will be presumed that what he wrote in his hand, which he did twice, is what ought to be used.
So the question is, which court was able to get all the evidence from both sides and concluded that 1960 is what should be used and not 1961? Because we saw one page letter from Domelevo to the audit service explaining his issues, and even said that the audit service board even said that they didn't have the capacity or the mandate to even do what they were doing. So when the president, or if the president constituted himself into a court and wanted all these details and other explanations, did they get Domelevo's side to also provide evidence?
Yes.
And if tomorrow, for instance, there are two documents, one bearing Manasseh Azuri Awuni and another bearing Manasseh Azuri Awene, and then you want to say, well, let's put emphasis on the Awuni because that's what his BEC.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Manasseh. Thank you very much, Manasseh. Your point well noted. But on the note of your name, I suppose you want to do the change now and do it. If you do it officially, you will not be said to have made any mistake. I used to use Anyenini, A-Y, and I was told later when I grew that my name is Anyenini, is A-N. I went and did the correct correction in the court process. Thank you very much. Now, let's go to Professor Kwaku Asare, who joins us to speak briefly about the accusations at those who filed the case and are said not to have done the right thing. Professor Kwaku Asare, thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Samson. Thank you for calling me.
Okay, so let's take your explanation.
Well, the statement that you made regarding the delay being the fault of those who have filed the writ in court seriously and materially mischaracterizes the state of affairs. And frankly, it is an attempt to excuse, justify, or otherwise rationalize a serious failure by the court to timely enforce the Constitution as only it is empowered to do. Now, our writ, something, was filed in July, I believe July 9th or 10th, and relief number 12 asked for an expedited hearing of the motion for injunction and the substantive court, given the important financial watchdog role played by the Auditor General and the irreparable harm that any delay will cause to the financial system and the integrity of the Constitution. Recognizing the importance of the case, the statement of case also lists the issues as we saw them. Notwithstanding the prayer for an expedited hearing, the court, after dismissing the injunction, took a 2-month leave. Something you will recall my being on Newsfile and actually pleading with the Chief Justice to bring them back, even though they are on vacation, because the issue here was very fundamental and was at the core of our Constitution itself.
Did you write? Did you write to the Chief Justice, or you only use the media?
Well, let me go on. The Attorney General responded on July 31, and in their response, they also list what they consider to the statement to be their issues. In our own statement, we have our issues, and it is incorrect, something that I use the media because I read to you relief number 12. The relief number 12 is not something that I said on the media.
Sorry, Prof, it's only a question I asked. The relief
that I prayed for in my statement of case. I asked for an expedited hearing. The Attorney General has responded. I've stated my issues. The Attorney General has stated the issues. In October, the CSOs joined. So here you are. We have our statement in July, Attorney General statement in July, a second suit in October, and we are sitting here in March. Nothing has been done, and you are frankly trying to excuse the delay and blaming the people who have filed their lawsuit and have asked the court to expedite the hearing. Come on, we have to be more serious than that. We cannot continue to justify, excuse, rationalize every injustice and every delay that happens in our system.
All right.
Once people file suit and they've stated their issue, the court too has a responsibility to figure out, well, what is the nature of the complaint or the suit that is before us? Because there are certain instances where failure to act will actually obliterate the value of the relief that the parties are seeking. A good example would be if a party was on death row and is seeking a stay, and the court is sitting there saying, well, something has not been done, so we will just let them kill the person. Once the person is killed, he cannot come back. Once the Constitution is violated and the person is asked to go on leave, not only has the court delayed, the court has actually agreed with the president.
Okay, Prof. Asare, you have withdrawn your suit.
Yeah, I mean, of what use will be the suit now to me? It's of no use.
So what is pending? What is pending now is the other aspect that the CSOs filed. They have not withdrawn theirs.
I don't know that. I can't speak for the
because CSOs, it's almost the same suits, right? Okay, can I have your brief comments? I can't
speak for that. I don't know whether they've withdrawn.
Can I have your brief comments on the 21-page statement from the presidency?
Well, I think it is completely needless, unnecessary. The day before, the audit board or the board of the audit service issued a 30-paragraph statement in the Daily Graphic. It was actually an advertiser's announcement. They paid to put 30 paragraphs about the issue. That did not sell. So the president has come out with 21 pages explaining the same issue. If they are right, they wouldn't be going on issuing statements after statements after statements. The mere fact that they feel compelled to issue statements should tell you they are understanding that they've done something wrong. And the advisors, to me, sometimes, the advisors also have a duty to ensure that the president's legacy is protected.
All right.
You cannot continue to leave the president to do these things.
Thank you, Professor Akufo-Addo, for making the time to join us this late in the United States of America. And Professor Stephen Akufo-Addo joined us. He filed a suit earlier, has withdrawn his. The CSOs have theirs also pending, and they seem to blame the court for not, being sensitive and quick enough to deal with the matters regarding Domelevo, the Auditor General. We reach out to the former Auditor General, and he informs us that he does not intend to comment. His new employer also doesn't feel he should be commenting on these matters in the public any longer. The CSOs Against Corruption also issued a very brief statement, and let me read that for you before I take my break and return. And their statement, they say that we have taken note of the statement from the presidency and the Audit Service Board. We will study it carefully and decide on our next course of action, if any. It is, however, important to note that Our statement on 10th of March 2021 was also based on publicly available facts with all references provided in the document. Invariably, discerning Ghanaians will draw their conclusions. This is Newsfile, brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN. Everywhere you go, Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows, having mosquito spray and coil, pleasant on humans, tough nightmare on insects, and upper food, it's tasty. DBS Industries, anything roofing, the best place to go. Robert & Sons Limited, optical services, that's your comprehensive eye care services provider. We will take a break here, return shortly, and I have in the studio Dr. Stephen. And I have if you want to say, the politicians joining us to look at the other matters. Dr. Stephen Amwa is MP in Shaeso and former CEO, Microfinance and Small Loans Center, Maslog. Fifi Fiave Kwete is former Deputy Minister for Finance and former member of Finance Committee of Parliament. We have also Dr. Theo Champong, economist and political risk analyst, as well as John Ewa, Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Association of Bankers. You have heard them. They say the state should not be asking them to pay for the bank collapse, the 21 billion that was used. We'll be right back.